soul, soul to soul, soul to soul.
Welcome to another episode of Soul to Soul. We're happy to have Rhina again with us. And just before we get into the core, or as a way to go deeper, I think it's always important to ask, well, how did you come to all of this? And to find out, Rhina, were you unhappy? Were you dissatisfied with your life? Many people come from different backgrounds. Some people were not unhappy. So where did you fit into this whole picture?
You see, I was choosing to work in a really heavy field, psychiatry and psychosomatic, because somehow I wanted to help people, but at that time in reality I could not even help myself. But then after short I realized how much energy it was draining to me, and after I already mentioned that I developed these negative habits in me, then and I didn't know at that time that I was creating it myself. I just thought happiness lies somewhere else, and I felt that Germany was responsible in these days for me to be unhappy. I didn't understand anything at that time, and so I thought I want to fulfill my dream in life, and that was to go on an unlimited world travel. So when I left Germany, I told my mom I never come back. She was really shocked. But anyway, then it was very surprising when I was back after 1 year again, because instead of traveling 10 or 20 years, which was my aim at that time, because I just thought that it takes time to find a place or circumstances where you are happy. That's why I didn't want to limit it by half a year and that is over and I'm still unhappy. So I wanted to give me as much time to find out what makes me happy. And where is it that I can become happy? Or is it maybe that I have to find my big love anywhere in the world or whatever? Something pulled me to just go away. And I didn't know at that time why. But my mother understood that I have to go. She felt he has to go. And even she was not happy me to leave her.
But she understood. That's quite unique.
She felt it somehow, she understood it somehow, but my mother was very attached, and you see, attachment is not a one-to-one thing, it is both sides, So my mom was attached to me, and I also was very attached to my mom. And so it was actually also a point that I wanted to overcome these negative effects of attachment, and thought, when I go away for 10,000 kilometers, then I'm free of this attachment.
Did you realize, or do you think it was more subconscious? Because most people don't realize that.
Realize at that time, this is what I understand now.
Attachment, it's not love.
100% true. This I only understood now, At that time I didn't understand. I just understand that something makes me very unhappy, even in the relationship with my mom. But I didn't understand really the background. But meanwhile, being a spiritual teacher, a meditation teacher, I have understood that the cause is attachment and bondage.
But at the time you felt like you needed a new beginning. And this is how you ended up in India, or, where did you do the course yourself? How did you become a student?
See, my aim was originally to go on the landway to Asia, but at that time you couldn't pass through Afghanistan and not through Iran, and so I decided I'd fly to Sri Lanka. So there I spent 2 months. Then I met in South India with a friend from that psychiatry. I worked together there, and we wanted, with 2 other friends, we wanted to meet in South India. What we did. But then in Goa we all get amebia, and we were really heavily sick. And then when we finally ended up together our journey in Bombay, then these 2 left back to Germany, and I thought, now my big world travel begins. And then I remember someone recommended to me, when I asked what's a good place in India, someone mentioned Mount Abu. So I decided I go directly to Mount Abu now, which I did,
The north. Is it? Himalayas, this is considered to be the spiritual part. I haven't heard that Mount Abu is famous for it.
It wasn't because it was famous. See, when you have enough time, you don't bother where you go first or later on, you know. I just wanted to spend 3 months in India, then I would go to Nepal for another 3 months, or as long as I can get a visa for, then I would come back to India, then I would go another 3 months to Sri Lanka. You know, when you travel around, you can stay as long as you want wherever you want. And that was what's really attracting me, because I understood it only later, I was looking for freedom. Huh? But what I wasn't aware is that freedom is not an external thing, it's connected to your inner world, you know. My definition of freedom now, being a meditation teacher for more than 30 years, is totally different than my perception at that time.
What was your experience when you came to Abu?
Actually, if I'm honest, I had such a bad experience in Mount Abu that I wanted to leave the third day, because I got cheated in a shop. And it was just on a key point in Mount Abu, and whenever I wanted to go anywhere, I always had to pass this shop. And whenever I passed this shop, these negative thoughts about myself, not being able to forgive myself, being so stupid, it popped up again and again, you know. So after being there 2-3 days in Mount Abu, I felt I just don't want to stay in this place anymore, you know. So I decided next morning on the third day, I'm going to leave. And I haven't been on the Naki Lake, you know. And so on the last day, I decided I go for Naki Lake, a walk, you know. And then I came to this board which was pointing out towards Brahmakumaris, which I didn't understand anything because no one told me anything about it. I just, without wanting to follow that path and that board which would lead me to Brahmakumaris, some magnet was pulling me into that street. Even I didn't want to. So I followed the street, and all of a sudden I was in front of this Brahmakumaris headquarters, and at that time they prepared the foundation of this big universal peace hall, and people in white dress, Indians and Westerners, were moving little stones and rocks, and I just felt I was in the wrong film.
You were like, what is going on?
I was just surprised. I just couldn't understand what was going on. And then I looked like a hippie. They just introduced me to come in and to have a look. And I was always curious in my life, so I went in, and you know, at that time I was so scared of joining any organization or cult or whatever, you know.
So being critical and looking for the mistake, did you manage to find it?
See, I couldn't find it in 2 seconds, so I was introduced that I can take a course there for 5 days, and externally I agreed, but internally I knew that after 3 days I have found the mistake, because wherever I reached before, I found that mistake very fast, you know. So even I agreed externally to stay 5 days, internally I knew on third day I am going.
You were already putting up the walls and saying, so what made you stay?
Actually, you know, on that third day, I finished the course anyway, because I asked that lady, she was German, she was only 18 at that time, I was 25. I asked her so many questions that she answered me everything, so we went through the whole course in 3 days. And so I was finished at the third day anyway. So when I was finished, I told her next morning I'm going to leave. And she said, but it starts only now. But I didn't feel to stay in this place longer.
And you didn't make it very easy for her, I can imagine.
Believe me, because I was not interested in joining anything. So I was not wanting to become a follower of these Brahmakumaris, not at all. You know, because I'm a person who never wants to be following anyone. I never could follow a guru system. This is not anything I like.
So you mentioned that there was some magnet pulling you. Did it start to pull again? What was it that changed your thinking all of a sudden?
See, this third day I stayed in this ashram for almost till 10 o'clock in the night, you know. I had a talk with some student from Germany, another one, and I just said at 10 o'clock, okay, good night, I leave tomorrow morning with a bus. I walked to my hotel. I didn't understand really what is meditation or yoga at that time, and I didn't do literally nothing whilst walking on to my hotel consciously, but all of a sudden it was like somebody throwing a bomb of peace and bliss on me. And it wasn't for a second, it was lasting for more than 2 hours. And I didn't walk back home to the hotel, I was jumping like a goat. I was such blissed out, I can't explain you in words how blissed out I felt.
You weren't even trying, it just happened.
Nothing, it just happened to me, And then, see, it was about, I think, like 12:30, 1 o'clock, I decided to go for sleep. The experience was going down and down and down. And when I awoke, first time, it was like with my patients, I thought I have become crazy because I didn't know anymore if that was now yesterday reality or only a dream, because I used to lie in the bed.
You started being critical again, I can imagine.
Yeah, I thought I have become crazy myself now, And then I was thinking, okay, if I dreamed everything, then I also dreamed that I wrote it the day before in my diary, And if it was true, it must be there. So I opened it and everything was black and white. So I knew it was true. Instead of leaving, I went up there to Madhuban. I was sitting in Baba's room, the meditation room there. And if you believe me or not, I came deeper into that experience of peace. Even the day before, I could not imagine it's possible to experience it more deeply.
It's Baba's room. What is that?
It's just a meditation room in that complex of Brahma Kumaris. And, at that time I didn't understand quite what it is. But meanwhile, I just know that there are such elevated vibrations in this room that you can have an experience just entering into that room and try out meditation, and that vibration there uplifts you in such a level that you can experience what they talk about.
So did your critical thinking, your judgmental way of being, did that change as a result?
Yeah, it changed completely, because see, I could not find the mistake in the theory, which I was sure I would, because latest when I would ask who is God, I never got anywhere an answer. But surprisingly, with Brahma Kumaris, I got just an explanation about everything, which I wasn't sure before if it's true, but I could also not say it is not true, And that experience made the click in my head, and that click then finally made me realize that I have found what I was looking for all my life.
So are you saying that your habit, this negative way of criticizing and, essentially not being open to new things, are you saying that changed overnight also?
Yes, it totally changed, because see, in this moment when I had that experience, I had a realization that it is my truth. I don't know what other people's truths, but I just know this is mine. I understood. In this second, in split of a second, I knew it, And all of a sudden, I knew that all that what I was taught is true for me. And that was really the changing point in my life.
So what was it that actually changed? Because obviously you had this experience. What was that experience? What have you come to find out since? Because people can have a lot of mystical type of experiences and it doesn't really lead to anything. People have visions and, let's be reasonable in a sense. What made...
See, even I brought up in Catholic background, religion was never a big issue for me, and something was connected for me which felt unpleasant in the whole context of Christian religion and God and all that. So I wouldn't consider myself that I was an atheist, but I was an agnostic, so I didn't bother about God. But see, for me was important as a person, they could prove me that God is not existing, or they prove me that God is existing. I wouldn't mind which one they proved me, but I wanted to be sure. And through that experience, I really could, I just knew that God exists. And He introduced Him to me, because that was always what I thought. I don't bother about God. If He wants something from me, He can introduce Him to me. And believe me, I was so surprised when it happened.
So it seems to me that you were more searching for the truth, something that would free you from the way you were thinking and the way you were being. You wanted to know what was going on with you and maybe the world.
I was really almost not believing you can find that truth, but I want to understand myself. I was myself the biggest riddle in my life.
So is that the key to changing the world, perhaps? Because, you know, people are really working towards trying to create peace in the world, and it's almost like, well, people say, you know, war's been around forever, you know, this is just the norm. You know, where do we go from now on? And is that somehow the beginning of, you know, getting to know ourselves? You've traveled a lot and you go to a lot of conferences, so...
Just recently I was in South Korea on a peace conference. It was not even 3 weeks ago. And, you know, what effort they did in order to create peace in the world, I was really impressed. You know, they carried 1,500 guests from all around the globe to South Korea, paying their airfare. Most of the people put them in 5-star hotel, including myself. You know, they make such big efforts. And then there were big amount of VIPs, you know, and they made them sign a paper, which is a good thing normally, but that doesn't lead into peace in the world, I believe. Because, see, I involved myself for 3 years into a peace bus project, and the aim was, I wouldn't discuss with people about peace, because this is a waste of time. Everyone tells his arguments and his way of looking at it, but the project was meant to give an experience of peace. And I would sort of take my peace bus and bring this to people home, you know, or wherever they want to gather friends. I would be able to share that experience in any kind of frame.
So how did you do that? Because it sounds like, you know, you were saying you went from hippie to happy. It sounds like a very 60s thing, you know, driving around in a peace bus.
I told you, this is my background. I was almost like hippie. That's why even till today, I feel very comfortable in a bus, you know.
So how did you create this experience?
See, the point is that the bus, there are pictures on the bus and there are slogans on the bus outside. And normally people invite me in this project that I come to their place and they gather a certain amount of people who then are open to have an experience of peace. So I wouldn't call it from the first moment meditation. I would just call it into a peace commentary, for example. And by this peace commentary, then the moment, because I had that deep piece of experience of peace, I know that my true nature is peace. And when my true nature is peace, then everyone's true nature is peace, you know. The only difference between me and others is I was lucky enough that I could touch it and others not yet have touched it.
And you can't share something that you haven't experienced yourself. And that seems a very interesting point in the sense that perhaps people are trying to go at this problem in the world of war and conflict through the head and the intellect rather than the heart, you know, and that seems more connected to just opening your heart and being ready to accept that maybe it is a time for change now and that it can be done through just being ready to accept and be open enough to believe and bring back hope. Did you make a conscious effort to meet God?
You know, I met him after 2 weeks, actually, which I could not believe is possible. But it was possible to have that personal experience. And surprisingly, when I was in this gathering and even meeting very personal, I knew it is God. And before I didn't know even that God exists. And you know that, and in the conversation I had with this Supreme Being, he made me recognize him by reminding me what in these 3 days after these 3 days I was always thinking. And I was always thinking I won a lottery whilst sitting at home and doing nothing. And that he reminded me of that I was thinking, you see. In this way, I just knew I have found my destination.
You couldn't deny it.
Absolutely not. And the good thing was, from that very moment, on this 3rd day, I never ever had doubts that this is true. I never ever had.
So did people think you were crazy afterwards? I'm sure, like, when you meet God, you want to tell people, so...
Actually, the interesting thing about my friends was that, I was just after 1 year back, so everyone thought, okay, Rhina has now a bit become crazy, let him go on another 2-3 years and he's healed again. But then they were really surprised when it lasted now 32 years. Huh? And the interesting thing was that when I came back after this 1 year, my mom was very surprised that I came back, because when I left I said I never come back. And then she was saying, what are you doing, why did you come back? And I told her, are you free for 5 hours? And she said, yes. So I gave her a meditation course. And this was I think it was in October 82 actually. And when it went towards Christmas time, I started to meditate with my mom, and it went on quite well. And towards February 83, I told my mom that I will go to India again. And I just asked her out of joke, would you like to come with me? If you believe it or not. She said yes. And we told it to my dad, and she was, you have to know my mom. She never left Germany, like that. Maybe the biggest she did was to go for camping to Italy. So she is not like me. She didn't inherit that from me to like traveling, So even I was totally shocked somehow when she said, why not? I could not imagine it at that time. And we really went together in February 83 to India. And at that time, she also could meet that supreme power. And she came back. My father was crying, and he said, if you ever go again to India, you better stay in India, to my mom. But if she really went the second time, he looked after the students, because meanwhile he even started to take up these lectures,
So it became infectious.
It became, even my sister after 6 weeks, we are 5 family members, except my brother, everyone turned at that time to be a BK. It was just amazing. And you see, the slogan of Brahma Kumaris is, through self-transformation there can be world transformation.
Is that the key? Is that your message? That really ultimately your whole experience and the effect that it has in your family, and I'm sure as your own self-transformation, you're going back to your core values and actually being the embodiment of all of these things that you're talking about. Is that the way forward?
See, this is my understanding how we can bring change in society. See, we speak of society, but society are individuals. And in my case, I saw, through my self-transformation, 3 of my 4 family members have changed. And they have a circle around them where when they see them changing, then one of their people might change, And that one who changed, he has again a circle around him. And see, why we normally can't believe in change is because we don't see anyone being able to change. But when you really see someone who deeply changed, who changed his value system from negative into positive, who then, for example, my friends, they told me later on, I don't know what you are doing, but it was very beneficial for your personality. Yeah? Because I was so depressed and negative before, and they saw that. So they were having no really opinion towards meditation, but they said this was good for you.
So how many times have you come to India now?
Actually, this time is my 40th time coming to India.
So how does it feel to come here? You must feel good, obviously, to have come so many times.
This place reminds me all my magic in life, and so it really feels as my true home. There are many who feel home here, but I feel double home here, because here my life changed completely. In 3 days from hippie to happy.
So what is that magic? How is this place different from any other spiritual gathering or religion, or, you know?
No, now I can tell it you easily. See, what is the magic of this place is I have not found any other place where you are introduced to essence. You know, and I was looking for essence. I'm lazy, you know. I don't want to read all the books in this world. I don't want to look at every path on this world and to find out which one is right or wrong. But here I got such an essence of understanding that allowed me to solve all my questions about being, you know, about meaning of life. All these things became very simple for me meanwhile. Huh? And at that time, it was a riddle I thought nobody can ever solve.
What you're claiming is quite powerful. And, you know, is that suggesting that this is where the truth is? Does that mean that, you know, this is the best? Does someone have to change their religion or their belief system in order to understand this knowledge? Or what is it that you're trying to say?
I can say it doesn't matter what bodily religion you belong to. You only have to find to your personal inner truth. And when you find that, then you can relate to that religion you are born into. For example, now I could answer anybody questions about Christianity, because it has become clear for me, even my own religion. Even before I didn't understand a word of the Bible. Huh? But even now, I have not studied the Bible so deeply that I can tell you all verses. But if someone tells me what's written there, and even they might not understand it themselves, I normally can explain them.
So you have a broader understanding, finally, which brings freedom and a sense of purpose?
Yes, actually, see, my present definition of freedom is to act according to mental laws. This is now my new definition. Not to do what you like, because when you do things which are negative, then the effect of that falls on you and it makes you unhappy. But when you understand the effect by understanding the mental laws, then you act according to that, what you want, that happens to you. And you want to be happy. So only if you do happy acts, happiness comes back to you.
These are actually some classic things that I think people have always known, that, you know, what you give is what you will get, and we're just going to that essence. And
but that makes a difference. See, people know that, but they are not doing it. Why? Because they don't experience the fruit and the achievement. But in that moment when you experience things, you know it and you want to follow it. And that's the point. You know, I changed many things in my life, but that can be another topic. What changes did happen in your life or anything like that. But I did everything voluntarily because I wanted to achieve the result of that change.
So thank you for your time, and we look forward to having you again if that's a possibility.
Most welcome.
Thank you for joining us, viewers, also, and we'll see you at the next episode.